kind of wish I could rip this boom microphone off sometimes. But...
Oh,
yeah. But
it doesn't disconnect?
No.
That sucks.
What's up, YouTube?
What up, YouTubers?
Thank you for joining us tonight. We're going live and going to get underway pretty quickly here.
Yep, let me get GarageBand up and running and recording. Boom. GarageBand testing. We are good there. All right. I guess I'll do the read. Got a lot to get into this episode.
Yeah, man.
Let me get Facebook Live up and going. Boom! Live on Facebook.
Nice. What up, guys?
What up, BSers? Facebook Live, YouTube Live.
Share.
Let me pull this up, make sure we've got audio going.
If you're on YouTube, if you're not on YouTube, go check out the YouTube later because we have featured on YouTube tonight the Birdland BS Fantasy Football.
That's right.
Belt.
For those of you on Facebook who can't see it, let me get you a shot. For those on Facebook, I mean James, because you're the only one there. What's going on, James? Let me get you a shot at it, a chance to see the new prize for the Birdland BS Fantasy Football League. I don't know if you can. And that computer cam wants to do kind of its own thing. There you go.
She's purty.
She real purty. It's a legit belt. It's pretty
man, that
cool.
thing is legit.
Yeah.
Ain't no doubt about it.
Undisputed Belts did their thing with that, man. That's really, really cool. Good job on that. Faux show. All right. We got a big show, a lot to talk about. Obviously, the All-Star games going on as we speak. The Ravens. We're gonna focus on some defense this week. Get away from all the Lamar Jackson and Joe Flacco talk. Talk about the Brigade. The Orioles. We're calling them weepstakes. I'm not crying. You're crying. It's not me. All right, whenever you're ready to kick off the show, let's do it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go.
What's up, everybody? Episode 54. We're going to get into the Ravens' defense of the future. The Brigade bounce back. Orioles weepstakes. All-Star game updates and more. Stay tuned. You thought we'd start the show off like that? Birdland BS. Check it out. What's going on, everybody? It's Birdland BS, Fred and Scott in the building.
What's up?
It's episode 54, and we're calling this, I'm not crying, you're crying.
No, you're crying.
No, you're crying.
We'll get into that later.
Yeah, it's becoming that time. I guess right now it's a matter of minutes, hours. I mean, it could happen at any second. As you can see for those on Facebook Live, I added a live Twitter feed to the broadcast, and all the Twitter feed is searching is Machado. So any tweet that has the name Machado in it is pulling up. Some of them may be inappropriate because there's apparently other people with the name Machado out there, so I apologize in advance if anything like that were to pop up. But we want to break it to you live. If something happens like mid-game, like you even talked about it before the show, what if Manny comes in
He comes out of the game as an Oriole and comes into the dugout as a Dodger or Philly. Those are the two top runners right now.
Yeah.
We'll get into that a little bit later, but it's gonna be quite interesting. We'll hopefully catch the breaking news here.
Yeah. Hopefully, you guys will see it before we will, because everybody's getting these updates online and everything through Twitter. So hopefully something happens here.
Yeah, hopefully we could use it.
But let's start off with some Ravens talk. Big thing with the Ravens this week, where PSL owners got your season tickets per se. That's been like the big debate, and people are all up in arms that the Ravens actually went more digital this year, catching up with the times, and instead of issuing paper tickets, you now actually can get in two ways to the stadium. You are given a lanyard, which the lanyard has all your tickets loaded onto it, which you use that to enter the game.
Right.
Or you just access your tickets through their mobile app.
Yeah.
Which has people up in arms. Oh, well, what if my battery's dead? What if I don't have cell phone reception? What if I lose the lanyards?
You should have remembered this.
Well, I mean, you could lose your paper tickets just as easily.
This is pretty chill.
I mean, what the hell?
Well, but I guess if you lose your paper ticket, you're only losing one ticket. But if you lose that card, you've lost all of your tickets for the season. I mean, I'd imagine that you can go get a new one.
Yeah, I mean, you get a new one, and like I said, you still have access to your tickets online via the app, even if you don't have the lanyard. So the lanyard is just like for the old timers out there that don't have a Facebook app or whatever to call FaceTime app, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They can get into the stadium with a lanyard.
People your age, Fred, we get it.
Look, I've got an iPhone. I've got a bunch of apps on here. I'm up with the times. I know what I'm doing. But the first full squad training camp practice is coming up. Starts Thursday. We talked about it last week. I'm excited. It's the first training camp in a long time that I've actually looked forward to. I don't know about you. Are you excited to go to the practice?
I am. I'm actually. This will only be the second time I've ever been.
Okay.
So, and the first time was like way back when. I really don't remember, to be honest. It was way back when.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think the last time I went to a Ravens training camp practice was when Kyle Bowler was still here.
Didn't you say last week that's a curse word?
Yeah, I know. I don't know why. It's just like one of those like diarrhea of the mouth.
Yeah, you had one of those last week too.
Oh. Yeah.
Don't let him live it down, people.
We're gonna let that one go. The bigger news really surrounding the Ravens this week, they released the injury report and the first PUP list, and 6 players were on the PUP list: Bam Bradley, Quincy Adebayo, how you pronounce that?
Adebayo?
Yeah, something. Vince Mailey, Jalen Hill, most notably Brent Urban and Marshall Yanda, which...
I feel like there's somebody missing off this list.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody was up in arms about the whole Marshall Yanda being on the PUP list. Look, this is precautionary. Marshall Yanda is one of the most seasoned veterans on this team. If anybody can kind of get away with coming off the list a little bit later, Marshall Yanda can afford to do that.
So I have to interrupt you. Matt just chimed in, and apparently because we're not watching the game, he says Machado just pulled out his phone and took a pic with Kemp from the Dodgers during the inning.
I can only imagine. People are going crazy. I can already see it in all the tweets. Dodgers. Yeah, I mean, we're going to get into that later and kind of dissect that a little bit. But, yeah, that doesn't surprise me, Matt. Appreciate the update. But, yeah, so, again, everybody's kind of up in arms about Marshall Yanda being on the PUP list. But
precautionary.
Yeah, it's just precautionary. He can come off the list at any time. He's coming off of a broken ankle, from week 2 in the season. So it's not like he's had a full year to recover from that.
No.
But, the thing was, during the mini camps, when he was kind of walking around camp and everything, from what everybody's saying, he wasn't favoring his ankle or anything. He wasn't in a walking boot or anything. So it's not like he's behind on his recovery.
No, they're taking the precaution. They don't want him over exercising and doing something to it, especially off the line. That's
Exactly.
the worst thing you can have happen, and then you're out before the season even starts.
Right. It's your all-pro guard. I mean, we saw how much of a difference he makes to the line when he's in versus when he wasn't last year, and we want to make sure that we take all those precautions.
Yeah, you have to. You have to make sure that these guys aren't getting hurt. Especially with the Ravens' history. There's one person that's missing off this list.
Yeah.
That everybody was surprised. Well, I shouldn't say everybody's surprised, but it's been a habit of the Ravens.
Jimmy Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he not on the list. Ahead of the curve, I guess, in his injury recovery.
Knock on wood.
You got a cornerback coming off of an Achilles. An Achilles is one of those some people just never fully recover. Some people can come back from it, but might even have, especially in a corner position, end up having to change roles, which you and I have talked about in the past. Maybe if Jimmy slowed down any, maybe progressing towards a safety role, a big body guy like him. We've got, Eric Weddle on the back end of his career. We need a guy, because Tony Jefferson, still young, but he's more of a box safety. He's a guy that's going to be good against the run and, good at covering tight ends. He's not good at covering the back end and covering wide receivers. So you need a guy that's going to be able to step in and replace Weddle's production, as he's already starting to drop off production-wise. I still love Weddle. I still think he's a good safety.
Leader.
Yeah, what he brings to the team in leadership traits, it's just immeasurable. But I think down the road, if Jimmy can't come back and can't run like he once did, that might be the transition we see.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. That makes the most sense long term. At some point, he's gonna have to step into a different role to stay on this team,
right?
And really to be on any NFL team. So what role does that become? And safety kind of makes the most sense. He's doesn't have to be as shifty and make those hard cuts like he's having to do a cornerback.
Right, exactly. And that's what training camp's going to be for, to see how that ankle holds up. And I mean, just thinking about it, like this defensive backfield's probably one of the deepest defensive back secondaries that I can remember. I mean, you've got Marlon Humphrey coming on his sophomore year, who did great in his rookie year, I think.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
progression that he made from week 1 to the end of the season.
Absolutely.
I mean, there was some footage I watched the other day of him covering Antonio Brown.
Right.
And, I mean, he was smothering him. So he can only get better. He's not coming off any kind of injuries.
And that just goes with what we were talking about, too. I mean, he's under that with the direction from Eric Weddle.
Right.
I mean, Eric Weddle is a big leader on that defense, especially with the D-backs, and it's only going to get better. He is only going to get better as Humphrey, moves through his career, and I think it's going to challenge him a little bit. Like you said, this is kind of the deepest set of backs that we've had. I think there's 7 guys that are lined up for these positions. One of the most notables, coming on that is getting a lot of attention is Deshaun Elliott.
Yeah, Deshaun Elliott, a guy that was kind of under the radar, Texas safety that we drafted this year. So far, he's looked good in mini camps. Haven't seen him with the pads on. Haven't seen him with the vets running against him and that kind of thing yet.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We'll see, how he progresses through that and how he picks up on the defense. But one guy that I'm excited to get back and showed a lot of promise in his rookie year is Tavon Young. This is a guy that can come in and play the nickel and do it very well, a la kind of Ladarius Webb when he was young. And he could shift out and cover the outside if need be, if somebody needs to come off the field or somebody's banged up and that kind of thing. So getting him back's huge. Getting Jimmy Smith back's huge. We just got to see how the injuries hold out and how they come back. And, because Tavon Young's coming off a pretty severe injury. He's coming off a knee injury, an ACL injury. So never can tell with Achilles and ACLs until they get out there and play. But 2 very valuable guys to this defense that could play big dividends in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, they Tavon Young, like you said, coming in before the injury was looking good, better than most people expected.
Yeah.
And to have him go down, it was obvious that there was a big hole.
Right.
And nobody was able to fill it. You know, him and Jimmy Smith both being out, it kind of deflated that defense a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get better. I mean, everything is looking up for this defense. You know, we've, like you said, we talked so much about the offense, but the defense is just looking, you know, immaculate. T Sizzle came on, and we don't have the audio for it, but he came on after minicamp and you know, made the comment that he wants to get better.
Yeah.
You know, he needs to have a better year this year, and it kind of was that growth and that leadership role that he's going to kind of take a lot of these guys under his wing. And one guy that I think from a defensive standpoint he's going to take under his wing, we talked about it a little bit, is Kenny Young.
Yeah.
The linebacker out of UCLA.
Well, yeah, I mean, what Kenny kind of brings to the team, I'll start with this. So the Ravens had a situational need at linebacker, right? So as great as C.J. Mosley is, he's not very good in coverage.
Yeah.
And Correa also not very good. Not very good at the inside linebacker position at all. Playing out of position, that was a head scratcher as to why Dean Pease did that with a guy who traditionally plays outside linebacker. It's where he played his college career, and he was very effective outside. Tried to shift him inside because it was a need for the team, and it just hasn't worked out. So there's a couple of dominoes that fall here. Correa's getting pushed back out, more so to see if he can even make this team, because he will not make this roster as an inside linebacker.
No.
He just won't.
No.
So he needs to prove himself outside. The big hole in the middle of the field is a linebacker that can cover the pass. And like I said, Mosley just he shows flashes where he'll do okay, but I think because the Ravens require him so much, I mean, he's in there every down, that, you know, just being tired and things of that nature, he can kind of get caught out of position. Kenny Young's being brought in because that's what he does. He's a fast linebacker who's good in pass coverage. Now, he's not so good against the rush, but we're okay with that because we've got C.J. Mosley there for that.
I tell you what, though, you bring that up, and I was watching some of the highlights. You can look on YouTube and you search for them. There's a highlight video. It's about 3 minutes long, and it's just shots, and they're circling, you know, where his position is. There is and people may jump on me for this, but a Ray Lewis-esque type look that I'm seeing from him. Ray used to be able to shoot the A-gap pretty good and predict the run, find that gap, find that hole. He was reading, at least in the highlight videos, pretty well on the run. And he was, like you said, a lot more of the highlights were him dropping back and covering the pass. But he was able to read, okay, I don't need to go on the pass on this one.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he doesn't have the ability to read and react, but we've got a perennial Pro Bowler in C.J. Mosley that can do that. So we don't have that need right now. If, for whatever reason, down the road, the Ravens decide not to re-sign C.J. Mosley, which that's a big contract that's coming up.
Yeah.
And
is that next year or the following year?
Next year.
Yeah.
So it's part of why I think Flacco might be out the door next year, because that's $20 extra million that they can use to pay people like C.J. Mosley. But that's a whole other topic there. I think one thing that the Ravens have always done historically, and we've talked about this a little bit before, is they draft to a need, in the sense that Edgerton Hartwell, when he was here, he was good at reading, reacting. Same thing. He was good in the middle, wasn't good in pass coverage. He went to, I think, the Falcons on a big deal, and they kind of asked him to be the do-it-all, cover-it-all middle linebacker, and he failed.
No.
Edgerton Hartwell was good at one thing, and I think that Kenny Young is going to be kind of that guy. Now, I'm not saying that he can't blossom into an all-around linebacker, but he fills a need in this defense right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I think that was a key draft pick that's kind of going under the radar. Not a whole lot of people are talking about. But one guy that I want to see step up, you mentioned Terrell Suggs and kind of Terrell Suggs taking somebody under his wing. I want to see Matt Judon take the next step.
Yeah.
Now you talk about leadership and being vocal and all that kind of stuff. That's one thing that we've kind of harped on with this team is the lack of personality. This is a guy that, again, if you follow him on social media and all that kind of stuff, he's got the personality. You know, anything that you hear about him is that he's very vocal during practices and things of that nature. So, and
Always
this is a guy, and it's a guy when he's on the field, he's very productive. But I want to see him take that next step, and he's made some pretty bold predictions in stating that he wants to lead the league in sacks. Well, you know, you got to crawl before you walk. Let's get in there and let's lead the Ravens in sacks. Let's not have a seasoned veteran like Terrell Suggs. As much as I want him to be as productive as he was last year, let's take that step and let's supersede Terrell Suggs. Beat Terrell Suggs in total sacks this year. That's a goal I want to see Matt Judon hit. And
yeah, I like the drive in that, though. I like the mentality of I'm gonna be the best.
Yeah, no, and that's great. That's awesome. But just get out there. I want to see a 10 to 15 sack season. If he does that, I'm happy with the production.
Yeah,
because pass rush is so important to the passing game. Because the faster you get a guy to a quarterback, the less the corners have to cover, the less the safeties have to cover. And it's crucial. And it's one thing that this team has sorely lacked since Doomerville's been gone. Since a couple of these guys have left in free agency, they haven't had anybody to really step up and replace that production like that a Doomerville had. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I mean, I think you brought up a good point too. With Sizzle and Judon needing to step up and kind of overtake him, you know, one of the things that it was asked of Sizzle in the interview was, you know, is the end coming? Right. And Sizzle's basic response was, when that does happen, it's going to end on a Sizzle year, meaning he's going to have a hot year.
Right.
You know, but I think to your point, you know, and you had talked about this before the show, you know, Judon not only needs to step up for the Ravens, but he needs to step up to be ready to fill that gap or fill that hole when Sizzle's gone.
Exactly. And that's what I mean. You gotta kind of see that progression now. You don't want to be with your back against the wall wondering if Judon or some of these other guys, Tyus Bowser or Tim Williams, you know, these guys are other situational pass rushing kind of guys. I want to know before Sizzle's out of here that we have Sizzle's replacement in place.
You have to know you have Sizzle's replacement in place.
And then right now it's a question mark. Like I said, I mean, I really do like Judon, and I'm high on Tyus Bowser. I think this guy last year came off of an injury in college, didn't really play a whole lot of football in college, but when he did play, was super productive. I mean, he's built like a brick shithouse. The guy is I mean, he's a freak of nature. He's raw, but he's got a lot of talent.
Yeah.
And, you know, having another year under his belt, I'd like to see him take another step. Tim Williams, a guy coming out of Alabama, you know, obviously a good pedigree, played in a good defense there, was a productive pass rusher at Alabama. Just couldn't seem to get away from tackles in gameplay. Anything that you heard about Tim Williams in training camp and in practice was this guy is light years ahead of where he's supposed to be from a pass rush standpoint. But then it just never correlated to on the field last year. You just never saw it. He'd run right into the chest of a tackle or a guard and just couldn't get off.
It was like he was stopped.
Right.
Brick wall.
And that's something that, you know, like I said, I just want to see the pass rush progress, because all that's going to do is do wonders for this defense. This defense is going through a big transition right now. They're going from...
They're shedding their old skin and putting on some new one.
Basically. I mean, they're going from what we knew of the Ravens defense for really the past 10, 15 years. You know, it's slowly players have kind of either retired or been traded or, you know, left via free agency and whatnot. We're starting to see a shift in defense, not in the sense that this defense is going to be any worse than any defense in the past. I have high expectations for this defense. I just mean from a youth standpoint. We're seeing that youth movement, which is good because this team needed to get younger on defense.
It gives them longevity, period.
Right.
It gives them longevity and depth, which is, what we've said. They need that depth, and seeing that depth at, the D-back position, hopefully seeing a little bit more depth of the linebacker position, it's just going to get better.
Exactly, and that's just the one thing that I'm kind of worried about is with youth comes a lot of question marks, comes a lot of patience. There's going to be bumps, there's going to be bruises along the way, but
it also increases injury potential too. I mean, these guys are young. If they aren't trained well, if they aren't training, if they aren't up to par, it increases injury.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and another guy that a young guy, second year, undrafted guy. He was a safety that the Ravens converted to linebacker. Pat Onwasser. He's kind of stepped up really big. I saw a lot of growth with him throughout the year last year. Lot of things being praised his way so far through just mini camps.
I feel like you don't see that a lot, though, a conversion from safety to linebacker. Usually I feel like you would see it the other way if you got a guy that's got a lot of speed to him, but I don't feel like you see that a whole lot.
No, actually, in the NFL, it is kind of more common than you would think.
Hey, you know this better than me. That's why I'm saying that.
Yeah, the only reason I say that is because you'll see a lot of guys who could keep up with the speed from a safety perspective at the collegiate level, but then they come in at the NFL level, and it's a whole nother ballgame as far as game speed goes.
Oh, yeah.
And these guys, they can't keep up from a safety standpoint, and they end up putting on a little bit more bulk, and they put on a little bit more size, and then they start to shift inside or play, the nickel and things of that nature where they can, situationally. Another guy, Anthony Levine, he's a perfect prime example of that. Guy who's a little undersized for a linebacker, but he's kind of the utility knife of the defense in the sense that you can kind of plug and play him in a few different spots, and the versatility that he brings is huge to this defense. I think what he brings, not only defensively, but to the special teams and all that stuff, he's a very under-the-radar, undervalued kind of guy.
Yes, I mean, you have to be at that point. It's, with him, you have to look at it and say, where can we put this guy during an injury?
Right.
Give a guy a break. And you're right, you can put him almost anywhere.
Yeah.
So it really opens up in your depth in those situations as well. So
absolutely. And speaking of really good defensive teams and performances, I don't know if you got a chance to see the dominant defensive presence and showing that the Brigade in the AFL put in against the Soul in the first half of their playoff game the other night.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, you had a guy really step up in Joel Powell, who's defensive back. He had 5.5 tackles and an interception, named defensive player of the game. He really stepped up in that game. And you hear 5.5 tackles, NFL, AFL, I don't care. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's a pretty good game, especially considering how fast paced that game is, how short the field is, and that kind of thing. But the Brigade jumped out to a 27-7 lead in Philadelphia against the Soul. Large part, Randy Hippert. I mean, he had a huge game at quarterback for the Brigade. MVP. Ended up throwing for 212 yards, passing 7 touchdowns, and he had the 1 rushing touchdown as well. Now, it was a tale of two halves. As fast as the Brigade jumped out on the Soul in the first half, they did stumble kind of coming out of the gates. Hippert threw a pick 6, and they turned the ball over. So they stumbled, and at one point, the Soul had gotten back within 8 before the Brigade finally put on the afterburners to close out the game and ended up pulling that one off 57-45.
And we weren't kidding with MVP. Hippert was named MVP of that game.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. Also, as a note, he leads the league at 2,978 yards, total yards passing. He's averaging about 241 yards per game.
This is on a 50-yard field.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's impressive with what he's doing. And at the same time, he's not even in first in that category.
No.
The Empire's Grady is – no, I said Grady, not Brady.
His name is Tom Grady.
Yes, it is.
Good
It threw us off when we were at the game and
Yeah.
heard it. But Grady's at 246.7.
Yeah.
So, it just shows you what type of players these guys are. And it's such a fast-paced game. You have game 2 coming up with this as we discuss this crazy,
the whole playoff.
lovely scenario that they've got going here.
Yeah.
I really hope they do change it next
So
year.
basically, the way that this works, and at least the way I'm looking at it, is the Brigade lead that game 12-0 right now.
Yes.
Because, if you think about it, right? So, again, if you didn't listen to the last episode that we talked about this, the way the playoff format works in the Arena Football League is
Confusing as hell.
you play 2 games against the same opponent to decide on who moves on to the next round. In those 2 games, if you win both games, you move on. Obviously, that's clear cut. If you win one and you lose one, what happens is it's the total combined scores of both games that decides the tiebreaker for the game. If the game totals 2 scores are tied, then it goes to some kind of fifth quarter overtime type of thing at the end of the second game, sudden death type thing that decides the game.
And each team gets one possession in that.
Right, exactly. So it's not like a best 2 out of 3 or anything that's any normal sport does, or just in any other football, it's a 1 win and you're in, type thing. They do play 2 games, and then they have this crazy tiebreaker. So with the Brigade winning the first game by 12, that basically gives them a 12-point lead to start game 2, because
Exactly.
even if they lose by anything less than 12, they're in.
Yeah, it's that aggregate score that's gonna kill the soul.
Yeah.
You're basically, as to your point, you're down 12 points. Even if you come back in the game, you have to beat them by 12. You have to get 12 to force the overtime.
Exactly.
So you have to beat them by 13 in order to win the game. So hopefully the Brigade, can pull this out at home. I think that would definitely be great to see. I'd love to see people get down there. That game is going to be on Friday. It's an 8 p.m. game, I believe.
Yeah, if you want a playoff feel or playoff atmosphere, kind of get a little bit of taste of football before the Ravens kick off, get down there Friday night. Support the Brigade. Like I said, you can get into these games for $15, I think, or $14 a ticket.
It's pretty cheap.
For
It's
them,
well
it's a playoff game. It's well worth it. It's a lot of fun. If you've got kids, like I said, they do a lot to involve the kids. Get them out there. It's a lot of fun.
And I had somebody tell me that the concessions aren't expensive either.
No, yeah, the concessions are pretty comparable to the new Ravens concession prices.
Yeah.
With all the drops and everything. So not too expensive of a night out. But as they look to finish strong on the bounce back year that they're having now, the Orioles in position looking to rebuild and do kind of the same thing as some teams in recent history have done and get back in the hunt with some young talent. And obviously the first dip into that young talent is going to be the biggest trade chip of them all.
What happens with Manny? Before we get into Manny for a second, did you know we're going into the All-Star break at 500?
Yeah, it's what?
Yes, 500 since last week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 500 since last week.
3-3?
We split 3-3 with the Yankees series. That doesn't include the doubleheader played on Monday, and then we won the series against the Rangers. And then we had the 1-game makeup with the Phillies.
Yeah.
Throw that 1 game in there, and now we're 3-3. So they're 4-4 since last Monday's doubleheader. It's the small things. A series split with the Yankees, who are struggling a little bit, but it's still a dogfight between them and the Red Sox at the end of the year. I don't care what anybody says; it's going to be a dogfight.
Yep.
But to then beat the Rangers, to beat the Phillies as well as the Phillies, I'm sorry, I think we lost to the Phillies. Now that I'm thinking about it, no, yeah, we lost to the Phillies. But to compete against the Phillies, they're a top team right now.
Yeah.
You know, and they are what we want to be, and the piece to that I think is going to be Manny.
Yeah, and my expectations from here on out for the rest of the season is, one, don't screw this up. Make sure you can get rid of anybody that you can get rid of to bring in some young talent, and let's not just have a garage sale and get rid of them for sakes of getting rid of them. Let's make sure that, you know, we're using these other teams that are, you know, multiple offers and that kind of thing to our advantage. Let's get the best package that we possibly can get for all of these guys.
I mean, there's multiple guys, there's multiple teams going after him right now.
Exactly. And then at the end of the year, I want to see another, like, what was it, 2011 or 2010 when Robert Andino
11.
Was it 11?
It was 11.
And spoiled it for the Red Sox.
Yep.
Kept the Red Sox out of the playoffs. I'd love this to play spoiler in that kind of role. I mean, really, there's nothing other positives that you can pull from the rest of this season.
You know what's even better to do it? Is to do it with a bunch of rookies.
Yeah.
Bunch of young kids, you know, with minimal leadership. Because I'm sorry, I'm not counting Chris Davis as a leader right now. Right. Even if you trade away every piece except for him and Trumbo, Trumbo's probably your closest for a leader, and he's quiet as hell. Exactly. So, you know, to me, it comes down to what can you do with a bunch of rookies. You know, the teams that have been named, Buster Olney originally came out and said the Phillies, Brewers, and Dodgers were kind of the top suitors, but the Braves, Yankees, Cubs, Diamondbacks all showing high interest. Indians were kind of the most recent one. There was a rumor that was going around that the Phillies had a deal, kind of quote unquote deal in place that would have included Medina, Franco, and potentially Crawford, J.P. Crawford, from the Phillies. But then the latest rumor, and it's been going around, there's a deal with the Dodgers.
Yeah, I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch. I mean, I've heard there's a deal in place, like you said, with the Phillies. I've now heard it with the Dodgers. I mean, if you're looking at the live Twitter feed there, that's all it is Manny to the Dodgers. Manny's taking selfies with Kemp. Manny's doing everything in L.A. How much is it for a flight from Washington to L.A.? There's all this stuff going on Twitter. I won't believe it until I know for sure, until I see that, you know, Manny's wearing another jersey.
I'm just going to say he came out on the red carpet today looking like Mr. Hollywood.
Yeah, he did. But the latest package from the Dodgers that I've heard, now I don't know how much truth there is to this, you know, this is all rumors and speculation, that the package would include Yusniel Diaz, which he is their 7th rated prospect overall in their farm system. Their number 2 rated outfielder. He's a 21-year-old Cuban. He's got line drive power, line drive gap to gap kind of power. The one thing that they kind of question with him is his stealing for total power, home run power, right, that kind of thing. They, you know, I've actually heard some comparisons on a local level to Henry Urrutia, kind of the same type of thing, where a guy worked a count pretty good, made solid contact with the ball, had good gap-to-gap power, but never really reached his potential as far as home run power. But then, you know, you hear this, and then you watch the Futures game, and this guy hit 2 home runs in the Futures game.
Right.
He had 6 home runs going into the All-Star break, and then he hit 2 in the Futures game. So he would be the top piece coming from L.A. Another one would be right-handed pitcher Dustin May. He was the L.A. Dodgers 2016 third-round pick, 20-year-old. He's their number 9 overall prospect in their system. Another one is infielder Gavin Lux. They quote-unquote put him as an infielder because he's playing shortstop right now, but they're not real sure on where his glove's going to end up. You know, it all kind of depends on how he grows into his body, whether he's going to be a second baseman, a shortstop, a third baseman, but he has the ability to kind of play all over. He was their 2016 first-round pick. He's 19. He was out of high school. He's their number 15 overall ranked prospect. So those would be the 3 big prospects coming from L.A. I don't know what your take is on those guys. I mean, I'll tell you, there are a few other guys in LA that I would much rather have, but considering we're kind of at the, the last hour here, if we can get this kind of haul, I think I'd be happy.
Yeah, no, I think you'd have to be happy getting some of these guys. I don't think all of them. I think you're going to see 2 prospects max.
Right.
I think it's probably going to be more like 1. And it's the thing that was being floated around, and Ken Rosenthal earlier before we went on actually came out and said that he doesn't think any major leaguers are going to be involved, because there was one question about, is there going to be a major leaguer involved in this trade so that they could get the luxury tax down.
And that name was Logan Forsythe that was being floated around.
Exactly. So, the question becomes, is that still in play? He's saying no, that's not in play. I'm back and forth. I think you need to get 2 players out of this. Whether one of them's a major league player or not, I don't know. Do I want a Logan Forsythe on the team? He's not a big leader. He's not your standout, leader, all-star leader that's going to be, pushing. I think I'd rather have 2 guys and let somebody else, get Adam out of here, let him come back and let him be that leader again.
For me, there's 2 guys in the Dodgers system that I'd like to see, especially if we're only going to get 1 prospect out of it. If we're only going to get 1 prospect out of it, I want to see either Alex Vertigo or I think it's Keibert Ruiz. He's the catcher.
The catcher, yeah.
Yeah, they've got 2 really good guys. Alex Vertigo being an outfielder and Ruiz being a catcher. Both of these guys grade out as not just everyday players, but these guys grade out as potential all-stars, future all-stars.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we do have a need, whether people want to believe it or not, we do have a need at catcher. I'm not saying totally give up on Chance Sisco, but if you've got a chance at grabbing a guy like Ruiz, you do it.
I see what you did there.
You do it. And then Vertigo, he's 21. He's a second-round pick. He hit 314, 389, and 436 against AAA. 52 walks, 50 strikeouts. Only 50 strikeouts. It's key.
Yeah, it's
433 at-bats. 27 doubles. So, I mean, this guy, and again, at 21, still hasn't reached his full growth potential there. I mean, this guy's his ceiling's just going to continue to grow.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why prospects are so, they're touted, but they're also feared.
Right.
Because you can have guys come up and do well in one area that was expected, and then another area that was expected to do well just fall off the table.
Right.
And so that's why it's always so touted. So I think I'd like to see the 2 prospects, because at least it increases your potential for the future.
Yeah.
So I think I agree with you. I think the 2 guys I would have to go with are Vertigo and Ruiz as well. The only other thing that I would say is I think it's Mitchell White, who's a pitcher, but pitchers right now with the Orioles organization scare me.
Yeah, they're not going to give up on Mitchell White. Not for Manny, not for a rental. If it was maybe the entire year, prior to this season, they may have done that. But at this point, like I said, I'd like to see one of those guys. If not, I'm okay with the package that we talked about earlier. But don't count out just because they say that, there's a deal in place. Nothing is final until it's final.
Yep. Nope.
Right. And, a lot of people are talking that it's the Dodgers and the Phillies, and that kind of the Brewers and the Yankees have taken a back seat to everything.
And then the Yankees swoop in and grab him.
Exactly. If we know anything of Brian Cashman, when Brian Cashman wants, Brian Cashman gets. And if he truly wants Manny Machado now, they absolutely have the depth in their minor league system to put together a better package than the Dodgers or the Phillies.
You know who else gets what he wants?
Who's that?
Theo Epstein.
Yeah, I still don't see him swooping in. Now granted, he could just be sitting back there and letting everybody kind of put out their best offers, and then maybe he does swoop in last minute with a better offer.
Who knows what his conversation with Dan was? It could be before you make a full decision.
Call me last.
Call me.
Yeah. And it very well could be, and I think that same is true for Brian Cashman.
Yeah.
And like I told you, I mean, I'm of the mindset, I could care less about trading in the division because Manny is a free agent after this season anyway. He's going to sign wherever the hell he wants to sign anyway, and you have no chance at anything this season. Why don't you trade if it's going to give you the best return in prospect value? You make it happen. And like I said, the Yankees are stocked in the minor league system. And if we know anything of the Yankees, traditionally, they buy pieces. They don't traditionally. I mean, yeah, they've had some guys come through the system. I'm not saying that they don't. They've had guys come through the system. You know, Jorge Posada and Derek Jeter and all these guys came through the system. But
Judge,
yeah, you know, Aaron Judge, exactly. So, but they've got a lot more that's being blocked right now, especially in the outfield position, because their outfield's so stocked with Stanton and Judge and all these guys that there's nowhere for them to go.
Yeah.
So do not be surprised if the Yankees sweep in last minute.
Yeah, the other team that's that has been rumored, and this has been a little bit on the lower end, is the Indians. But the Indians rumor is more surrounding now Adam Jones.
Yeah.
Interesting note for him. We all know he bought Cal's house a few months ago. Well, guess what he did this week? He put up his mansion in Timonium, $2.7 million. The house is nice. But that tells me that I think Adam is not using Ripken's house as a turn house. He's not flipping it. I think it's going to be his home. I think he is here long term. Why would you make that? And I mean, maybe he still is going to flip it. I just feel like it's the timing of everything. A few months later, you're doing it. Maybe he was moving stuff here and there. Who knows? Maybe this week he's moving a bunch of stuff to the Ripken place. A few months have gone by. I guess it's been about 2 months. You could get a contractor in there to do a overhaul in some of the rooms in a 2-month period pretty quickly, especially if you got the money that he's got. So
I don't know. I mean, there could be a lot of truth to that. I mean, it could just be, who knows? I mean, his home, his heart has always been in San Diego. And if his contract status is up for the future and he's kind of in limbo as to where he's going to be for the future, he could just be preparing. For the future, get it out of the way while the market's hot because people are buying houses left and right now. He's still in good graces with all the fans here in Baltimore. People would covet to buy Adam Jones' old house as he moves away from Baltimore. So, I mean, there's a couple different ways that you can look at it. But I said it last week. Get what you can get for Adam Jones. Give him his fair shot at going out and trying to win a World Series somewhere else because we owe it to him. And hopefully he'll come back here and, sign a deal and play his final years here in Baltimore and retire an Oriole.
They owe it to him.
That would be kind of the storybook ending to Adam Jones's career. But we'll see what happens. I mean, there's the rumors of Adam Jones. There's the rumors of Zach Britton. There's been rumors of even Michael Givens being packaged into some of these deals to try to sweeten the pot type thing. Brad Brock's out there. I mean,
how many times have we said it? Nobody's off the table.
Nobody is off the table at this point, and they're fielding all phone calls. So, I think the first trade tip, obviously, to fall is going to be Manny because that's the biggest one you need to focus all your time and your resources on. And then over the next couple of weeks until the end of the trade deadline, you'll start to see the other ones kind of fall in place as they should.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll have to see what ultimately happens. Everybody I'm watching the Twitter feed, everybody is, Dodgers confirmed. Well, we still have to see. There hasn't been a confirmation yet, just to throw that out there. Nothing has been 100% confirmed. Neither of these teams have announced it. So, who's to say?
Nothing is final until the ink is on the paper. Manny Machado is out on the baseball field right now. Unless he signs something prior to going out on the baseball field, nothing is 100%.
With the agent holding on to it. Exactly.
Right. Nothing is 100% at this point. But like I said, just looking at the package of prospects that have been rumored out there, definitely the Dodgers have the better offer on the table from what's being talked about.
Exactly.
And I would be okay with that in return and investment for, a couple month rental of Manny Machado.
Yeah. Well, with All-Star Week, another thing that's kind of going around is a lot of talk. I have to mention Fred's interview on Fox Sports And sorry, no, it's not you,
I was
Fred.
about to say, when was I on Fox Sports?
I'm talking about Fred Manfred. He had an interview. It was a very short interview, about 2-3 minutes long, with Fox Sports. And one of the things that was, I should say, several of the things that were brought up that we have to at least hit on. He got asked about the pace of play thing.
Okay.
And he said that they're saying it's down by 5 minutes, and he hasn't fielded any complaints from any managers on oh, I had that one mound visit. One mound visit more would have changed this game. He hasn't come across that yet.
Okay.
But he did make a statement, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you can go get the actual one. He said something along the lines of, they recognize that the managers and GMs may be looking to just win 1 or 2 more games, but that may not be what's best for baseball in the big picture. Referencing that, teams are doing some of these things that are causing issues with pace of play, or causing, a little bit of detraction from the game, and a little bit of detracted interest from fans, and that may not be what's best for baseball. And he actually turned around and related this to shifts, because they are looking into the idea of banning shifts or making some type of restriction, because in his words, they're watching the teams change the game. Historically, it's been behind closed doors. The commissioner's office is making these decisions. They put it out to the owners. The owners vote and everything on it and come together. And so behind closed doors, these changes are being made to the game. Over the past about 6-7 years, we've watched this shift just explode. Mm-hmm. And his whole point is, yes, I get that you're doing this to, keep up with the analytics and the statistics. But from his standpoint, that may not be what's best for baseball, because if fans are getting detracted and taken away from the game because every time they shift, I don't want to say it's a guaranteed out, because it's not, but it's an increased likelihood of an out because they're playing it to that. It's detracting the fans away. There's not as many home runs. The home runs are down this year. They've already said that. I think his whole piece is they might have to step in here at some point, right? Because ultimately, it is a business.
So here's how I'm going to reference that, right? So I agree. I think the shift is bad for baseball.
I agree.
And I know this is going to be kind of a weird comparison, but this is how I'm going to compare it, because it's the easiest thing I could think of and how to compare it. There's a line of scrimmage in football. You can't start the play as a defender on the other side of the line because a guy's going to run to the right, or you think a guy's going to run to the left. You can't line your guys all up on the other side of the line of scrimmage,
right,
and just be prepared for a run coming that way. Like, that's how I equate it to, because
can't be offside in soccer or hockey.
Right. I don't know how you make that fix, and I don't, whether it's, second basemen have to stay to the right of second base, and shortstops have to stay to the left side of second base, and third basemen have to stay to the left side of shortstops, and whatever the rules may be. I really think that the shift is bad for baseball, and I think that needs to be addressed. Pace of play, I think some of the rule changes and stuff that they've made to try to increase or to decrease the time in games and things of that nature. And like you mentioned, I think you said it was like a 5-minute difference.
Yeah, that's what he came out and publicly said.
5 minutes means nothing.
Exactly.
5 minutes does nothing for a fan. In order for baseball to kind of adapt more to our short attention spans as Americans, we would need to knock off a half hour, 45 minutes of a game.
You need to have your average game be below 2 hours and 30 minutes, period.
Yeah, you got to be below 2 hours and 30 minutes. And most games are typically 3 hours or above. So you're at least knocking off a half an hour of a game, most likely more towards 45 minutes of a game. Some games go on for even longer. Yeah. And maybe even do some changes to extra innings and things of that nature. I know that there was some
they were floating around that idea of second base,
starting somebody at second base and all that. I don't know if I agree with that. There's enough smart people in baseball that they can figure it out. But I think it's unrealistic to think that baseball will ever get down to below 2 hours and 30 minutes without making drastic changes to the rules and drastic changes to the play of game. And
but you pull it down to 2 outs, you can do it real quickly.
Exactly. But who's going to do that? Like, I mean, you get down to 2 outs, and then it's changed the entire, like, the way stats are tracked and all that stuff, you know, over history.
I mean, we're already seeing that anyway.
I know.
With the stat tracking.
I think baseball is what it is. There are things that they could do to improve the game, to improve the fan experience. You know, baseball was America's pastime at one point. It's not like we all woke up one day and we're just like, I don't like baseball anymore. People like baseball. People love competition, right? That's the biggest flaw with baseball is the no salary cap. I think that needs to be addressed first.
Oh yeah, you got these guys making hundreds of millions of dollars, and under that same token, you know, we saw the thing, and it's not, you can't compare it, but it was, you know, it was a meme of LeBron James next to Chris Davis, and it was train your kid to be a baseball player because Davis was making more money across the long term. Now, when you factor it out per year, LeBron was actually making more, but Davis was more set long term. So that's the thing that you get when you're dealing with that. And to your point, that's why there's caps in other teams.
Yeah.
These guys are overpaid for what they're doing. You're overpaid to underperform. It's the only sport, and you and I have talked about this in the past. It's the only sport where you can get up to bat and fail every 2 out of 3 or 2 out of 4 times and be good.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you know, some people try to compare baseball to basketball and things of that nature. They're two totally different sports and two totally different environments to be able to compare. Basketball, you're 1 or 2 players away from going from under 500 to being in championship contention. You go out and sign a LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard, all of a sudden you're a title contender.
Just ask the Warriors.
By bringing those two. Exactly. So baseball, you can sign Manny Machado and you can sign Bryce Harper, but that doesn't mean that you're going to bring home a World Series title. Baseball doesn't work that way. It's you know, there's 9 guys on the field. It's a 25-man roster. There's a lot more to that roster than just 1 or 2 guys. Yes, 1 or 2 guys help, but you need a lot more than 1 or 2 guys. So there has to be better competitive balance in baseball. It's the same teams. I mean, you can go in and year out and pretty much predict who's going to be there at the end of the season every year. You don't really have a whole lot of Cinderella teams. Occasionally you'll have the Tampa Bay Rays who, you know, do pretty well with just their prospects and drafting and things of that nature. Occasionally you'll have the Kansas City Royals who will put together a team for a 1 or 2 year run. But football has got it figured out. Football, almost every year, you could pick different teams and flip-flop teams that are going to be in or out of the playoff hunt.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you, there's at least going to be 3 or 4 new playoff teams this year than there were last year. 3 or 4 different teams. And that's kind of what baseball needs to get to. Is baseball needs to figure out a way of getting the players and everybody to agree on some sort of a salary cap system that brings competitive balance back to the sport, and it will put fans back in the seats.
Yeah, no, I mean, I 100% agree with you. It's not, you know, it's not often you and I kind of agree on that kind of stuff, but I 100% agree. You have to find some type of balance. Salary cap, I think, plays a huge role into it. You know, there is also thrown out of the idea of, and Manfred also kind of talked about this, expanding to 32 teams. He would love to see it expand to 32 teams before his tenure is over. He said he would love to see that. Now, it was interesting some of the cities that he named off. He named off Portland, Nashville, Vegas, Charlotte, Montreal, Vancouver, and also made the statement that they're looking into several places in Mexico to put a team.
Yeah, they've been kind of dabbing in Mexico. And
you go down with a game and stuff like that. Yeah,
for years.
I think the two that make the most sense to me is to get another team in Canada, whether it be Vancouver or Montreal.
I think Montreal hands down.
Look what happened with Montreal last time we had a team there.
Yeah, but it worked before too.
No, that's true.
It worked for years and years before that. So a lot of that had to do with ownership.
And then I'm torn on the other one. I'm between Vegas and Nashville.
Yeah, I think I'd like either one. Vegas kind of brings a whole nother dimension to sports. You know, we're seeing that now with hockey, and we're going to be seeing that shortly with the NFL. I think the better fan base and the more consistent fan base is going to be just looking at it from a business perspective. The more consistent fan base is probably going to be in Nashville, just because more people call Nashville home than Vegas. Vegas is more of a tourist attraction and that kind of thing. I'm not saying that they're going to have a problem, especially for the first, 5-10 years when the team's new and, the novelty of it and all that kind of stuff. But you start getting into 15 years, 20 years, and maybe they're not doing as well as the team had hoped and all that kind of stuff. I just don't see Vegas holding on as long as a city like Nashville would.
No, I agree with that. The only thing that you get with this is that you see in a city like Vegas never sleeps. Right. It is this. While people call New York the city that never sleeps, it's really Vegas that never sleeps. Vegas has got the casinos running 24/7, and it's hustle and bustle all day, all night. And so I think bringing a team over there, I think, to your point, before people go dabbling in Vegas, I think you need to see what happens with the Knights.
Yeah.
I think you have to see, okay, they went in, they had immediate success. If they have failure next year, does Vegas just drop off the planet with sports? I think you'd be smart, to your point, to wait and see what is the longevity or potential longevity of this. Yeah. I agree with you on paper. It's definitely, Nashville, but Vegas can't lose. You're going to have people there all the time. Not only is it great a tourist attraction, but if you go out there to go see your team, guess what you're going to do? You're going to go spend money at the casinos. Yeah. You're going to make a trip out of it. What are you going to go do in Montreal?
I don't know enough about Montreal to be able to comment on
that. But that's my point. That's why I'm saying I think you have to go with either Vancouver or Montreal just because. But that's why I think Vegas and Nashville are a larger draw, because there's more to do and it creates more of a tourist attraction. When you don't have something else that's known for that area, you lose it very easily. That's why I'm not the biggest fan of Portland. I'm not the biggest fan of Charlotte. Sports fans are not going to Portland. You know who's going to Portland? If you're one, I'm sorry, a millennial that's a hippie. It is a hippie town.
I don't know enough about Portland to be able to comment on that. They got the Trailblazers.
It is well, who knows for how long.
Yeah.
But, my point is that there is more draw to me to Vegas and Nashville because you have other things that are going on there. And because you have other things that are going on there, it's going to increase the likelihood people are going to travel there to see teams. You're not going to see a strong team home base, but you're going to see teams travel well. And the prime example of that came in the playoffs when it came to the Capitals. The Capitals traveled well to Vegas.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with that. And again, I don't know enough about Vancouver. I don't know enough about Montreal to comment on that. I think that if we were talking about Canadian teams, I think Montreal, I mean, they've been in talks of getting another team ever since they left, because a lot of that had to do with ownership wanting out of there,
right.
Ownership kind of running that ship into the ground until they got the move that they wanted. That I think Montreal could support the team again in the future if they got it. I think Nashville...
Running that ship in the ground is an understatement, by the way.
Yeah. I think Nashville has done really well with the Titans ever since they've gotten the Titans, and I think they've done really well with the Predators ever since they've gotten the Predators. They've got a really good fan base. The people being super nice, and just their fan base is pretty large there, considering it's a newer franchise and that kind of thing. So I think a baseball team would probably do well in Nashville. I just don't think, again, the longevity for Vegas is there. I think short term, if you're looking to earn a quick marketing buck and that kind of thing, absolutely Vegas. Because that's going to be the prime thing to go do is go watch a football game, go watch a baseball game, go do anything while you're there in Vegas, gambling your money away. I can go get a 3-hour break by going watching a game and not have to blow a ton of money while I'm sitting in the game. You know what I mean? So,
speaking of gambling, just to throw it out there too, that he didn't spend a lot of time on it, but he was asked about sports gambling, and he basically kind of came out and said, baseball is not going to pawn off regulation on somebody else to regulate their game. They're going to have, as they work with the states and the federal government with the gambling, they're going to have strict rules, regulations within baseball to avoid the game being tampered with. So I thought that was an interesting kind of statement there.
That is. Just a real quick All-Star update. So the AL, it's top of the fifth, 2 outs. The AL is leading the NL 2-1. AL has 4 hits. The NL has 3. So kind of a pitching duel there. I know 2-time All-Star MVP Mike Trout seems to be having a pretty good game. He's 1 for 2. He's got an RBI and a run scored. So he's 1 for 3 now. He just popped out. Oh, really?
Yeah.
As I say that. Well, he's going for yet another All-Star MVP. Let's see.
The other thing I think we have to hit on that happened yesterday is the home run derby.
Yeah. Wow. That was a lot of fun to watch. And for me,
I'm so torn on it. I'll get into it in a minute, but I was so torn on it.
There's a couple things. One, I would have liked to have seen maybe some bigger names in it.
Yeah.
You know, I would have liked to have seen Aaron Judge back in it just because he hits him a mile. I would have liked to seen Mike Stanton in it because he hits him a mile, or Giancarlo Stanton, whatever you want to say there. I would have liked to have seen some other names in it, but I'll be honest, some of these guys in there that I had never even really kept track of or
tabs on
impressed me a lot. Now, the 2 guys that just glancing at the rosters as to who was going to be in this thing, Schwarber and Harper were my 2 guys that I figured would be there at the end, and of course, they didn't disappoint. They were there at the end. And man, as much as I am not a Bryce Harper fan, what he did in those last 2 rounds was pretty impressive.
The guy put up 9 home runs in 55 seconds.
Yeah, it was insane. I honestly thought, like, he got off to, in that final round, a horrible start. He had, like, 4 home runs in the first minute and a half.
He was doing horrible. I thought he was gonna be killed.
He's done. There's no way in hell he's catching up to Schwarber. And then, like you said, and his father. Oh, what the hell was going on? Did you watch it?
I watched the whole thing. Yeah.
His father had one that looked like 50 Cent out there throwing, where it went like way off to the side. Yeah. Nobody said anything about it. I'm like, where the hell did that ball go? It was so bad the camera didn't even catch it.
Yeah, he was throwing him inside, he was throwing him outside, and you could tell Bryce was getting frustrated. But then his dad hit that groove.
Yeah, as soon as he hit that groove, so did Bryce.
Yeah, it was perfect. I mean, they were perfect pitches. I would have loved to have been swinging out there, But I think you have to. So just to kind of do a quick rundown, the pair ups were Jesus Aguilar versus Rice Hoskins. Aguilar from the Padres.
No, Aguilar's from the
Brewers.
Yeah.
Sorry. The uniforms look almost the same. Yeah. Rice Hoskins, they faced each other. Aguilar had 12. Hoskins had 17.
Aguilar just took his time. He did not seem to be in a rush of any kind, and he didn't seem to be, I don't. He almost didn't seem like he even wanted to be there. But I mean, that was just my take on it. Now, here's the thing. And I'll say this really quickly. The rules are not clear-cut, and the rules are not, what's the word I'm looking for? Enforced. There you go. Because the rule states in the new format of Home Run Derby, the pitch is not to be thrown until the foul ball or home run or,
until the other ball landed.
Until the other ball lands. Some people followed suit with that, and a lot of people didn't. Some did for a little while, and then they didn't halfway through, and then they did at the end. It was all over the place as far as who was following that, who wasn't. Aguilar's pitchers seem to kind of follow that protocol a little bit.
Yeah.
So, the home runs that he missed were more detrimental against him because obviously he just wasn't getting as many swings
Exactly.
as everybody else. But
so Hoskins took him out 17-12. Bregman versus Schwarber.
that was a classic matchup.
That
there,
was.
man.
And just to throw it out there, the Aguilar-Hoskins difference of 5 home runs was the largest all night.
Yeah.
You don't normally see that. Normally there's a blowout somewhere. Somebody's getting killed by 10 home runs, whatever. Bregman had 15. Schwarber had 16. Harper went against Freeman and pulled it out of his butt with 13. Freeman had 12. Then Max Muncy over Javier Baez had 17 over 16. So really close matchups in the first round. In the second round, you saw Hoskins go against Schwarber, which was the matchup of the night. I know that the end of the matchup was great. Hoskins hit 20, and Schwarber had to come out and hit 21. And Schwarber's walk-off looked pretty.
Yeah, it did. And a lot of credit goes to Hoskins, though, because this guy, he was actually talked about.
Hot Hoskins.
He was actually talked about prior to this season as part of a package deal to possibly obtain Manny Machado.
Yeah.
Because,
that's out the door.
Yeah, that's not happening anytime soon now. But, man, he put on a display. He has one of those almost like Palmeiro-type swings, just really sweet and effortless kind of swings. Doesn't look like he's over-swinging the bat too hard. But, man, the ball just jumps off his bat.
Yeah, he's letting his hips and his hands do the work. I mean, that's what happens. Yep. But so you had Hoskins starting to beat Schwarber. Schwarber comes off and hits the 21st and wins that round. Then Harper goes against Muncy. Harper's lucky number last night was 13 because he hit 13 against Muncy to win it. Muncy had 12. Then the final, Schwarber versus Harper. It literally came down to the 32nd.
Yeah.
Overtime, so to call it, because he hit 2 over I think it's 440.
Yep.
So it was great. Yeah. It's great to see a hometown guy walk it off. He was decked out in the American flag, which I thought was really cool. I don't know if you saw his cleats. I was jealous of his cleats.
I did not pay attention to his cleats. No.
So
I couldn't get past the do-rag and the hair.
his cleats were the American flag with Declaration of Independence, We the People, on the back side of it. I'll have to show them to you later. It was pretty cool looking. I give him a lot of credit. It almost looked like his bat. I don't know if you saw his bat. His bat was very similar. See his bat. So it was very similar to that. I thought that was great.
I can't give Bryce Harper too much credit though, man. That guy just something about him just rubs me the wrong way.
It's because he flings that hair.
I don't know what
throws that hair back.
Needs to be doing a Head and Shoulders commercial or something.
So we talked about it was minimal blowouts. It was a great overall piece, but I did take one issue with this home run derby this year, and the issue that I took with this was I was extremely upset and disappointed, and it's partially because I'm such a traditionalist. I did not like that you had one American League representative, especially on a year that the American League, period, not just the Orioles, but the American League got screwed out of a all-star game.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I thought that was kind of a head-scratcher, too, that there was only one American League player. But I think a lot of that has to do with players accepting the invitation to the Home Run Derby. I think a lot of players were asked to play in this Home Run Derby, and a lot of players just turned it down, and more so National League players accepted than the American League. And then you start getting through a lot of those top power hitters in the American League, and you start coming down to the lower tier guys, then it's a real watered down American League if you force it. If you force it that 4 guys come from the American League and 4 guys come from the National League, and the top 10 American League home run hitters don't want to participate in it, then you get down to those, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th home run hitters. You got guys hitting, 12 and 13 home runs for the year against guys hitting 25 and 30.
Well, and we talked about it last week, too, with the selections. You had a guy that you ranked number 2, by the way, in this whole thing, that's hitting 220.
I know.
The rankings, just so you know, Aguilar was first, Harper was second, Third was Muncy. Fourth was Bregman. Fifth was Schwarber. Baez was sixth.
I think it's all based
Freeman
off of
was
total
seventh.
home runs.
Hoskins. I don't like.
I think it's what it is. I mean, it's a home run derby. It's not a batting average derby. You know what I mean? It's same thing. Like, you put Chris Davis out there. This is a guy that is hitting, 120? Whatever he's hitting nowadays. I don't even know.
Yeah.
He's going to run into a few home runs. It's BP.
But I guess I look back at the year that Cespedes wasn't elected to the All-Star game.
Yeah.
And they let him come out and do it. I think that's what you do. You just say that you're paid as a home run hitter. Come on out. If your team's not in it.
Well, that's a whole different issue. If you force and you mandate that players must, unless bearing injury, players must participate in this home run derby, and you make it mandatory, then yeah, I mean, then it's real easy. Top 4 American League versus top 4 National League. But if you keep in place where the players have the ability to accept or decline, that's where you get into a position. And I think that's what they did, is they said, okay, well, we got this guy Bregman who wants to do it, but nobody else in the American League wants to. That's putting up the numbers this year.
Right. We
got to fill it with true home run guys, and it seems like a lot of the National League guys just wanted to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I just thought it was the ultimate FU to the American League.
Right.
So that was just kind of my view on it. But
all right, Scott. Well, it's about that time, my friend.
It is. Lube up my vocals.
And now it's time for the 2-minute warning.
All right, Scott. Last week I ended this on a blunder.
Not gonna happen.
Let's see what you can do. It's your turn for the 2-minute warning. And Scott, your 2-minute warning, it starts now.
Well, France, they decided to go out and win that FIFA World Cup.
That they did.
Yeah, the soccer, the football, not the football American version, but the football that the rest of the world knows. They beat Croatia 4-2. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna end with the sad news. I'll kind of begin with it. Former Senators, Flyers, and Blacks Hawk goalie Ray Emery died at 35 after going swimming in the Hamilton Harbor. His body was found a few hours later. Unfortunately, had passed. Tony Romo. Yeah, he's not playing football, but he did play golf in a celebrity golf tournament, and he won.
Yeah, he's a pretty damn good golfer.
He beat Mark Mulder, former left-handed starting pitcher for the A's and Cardinals, Joe Pavelski, the San Jose Sharks captain, Marty Fish, who's in tennis, and you guys may have heard of the other guy. He won a Super Bowl with the Ravens. His name's Trent Dilfer. Daniel Cormier beats Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight title in UFC. Then enter Brock Lesnar from the WWE, who shoves him, throws a bunch of F-bombs, and takes a page out of the WWE book with this one. Seemed a little scripted for me with Lesnar and Dana White's comments at the end. Mike Matheny gets fired from the St. Louis Cardinals and admitted that after it happened, he was on the hot seat since last year. Angelique Kerber and Novak Djokovic both win the women's and men's respective titles at Wimbledon this past weekend. The ESPYs are set to air tomorrow night at 8 on ABC, hosted by Danica Patrick. Look out for that one. It's going to be pretty interesting.
I like Danica Patrick.
I'm going with the left turns. And finally, a 1952 Mickey Mantle card went on display in Denver today for a 72-hour public display. Owner Marshall Fogel is a lawyer and had it arrived in an armored truck while insuring the card for, that's right, $12 million.
Good Lord.
It is only one of 3 cards to ever received a perfect 10 rating.
Wow.
If you follow or you pay attention to baseball cards.
Yeah, you always see like 9 point something.
Exactly.
You never see 10.
This I get chills talking about this. I would love to go see this card. A perfect 10 it was what they refer to as an A condition rating. There's only 3 ever. Like,
that's pretty wild.
That is wild. He actually was quoted as saying, and somebody backed it up, that it is actually something that is worth more than $12 million. So it is the one number I saw was something like 20.
Wow.
It's amazing,
That
especially
is-
being a Mickey Mantle card.
That's pretty wild. Going back to Tony Romo being a good golfer, one guy who's not Charles Barkley
He came in dead last.
came
in
in
thing.
dead last in that. He was beaten out by, man, I was listening to this on the radio. Who were some of the names that beat him out? Oh God, the guy who Monday Night Football, Michaels.
Al Michaels.
Al Michaels.
Yeah.
Al Michaels beat Charles Barkley.
If you've never seen Charles Barkley swing, go look it up, please.
Oh my gosh, it's harsh. People say that like he's gotten better, but the stats do not show. It's hard to watch. Can't believe that guy even goes out there and does it. But that just goes to show what kind of character Barkley is.
A character doesn't even begin to say what Barkley is.
He's one of my favorite players, though, man. His just personality and his, no holds bar, and I don't take any shit. Did you hear about Ron Artest? Speaking of weird, crazy crap. So Ron Artest, former NBA player, was just signed to the new Big Three League.
Yeah.
And in his first game, I want to say in the first minute and a half, he's thrown out of the game for booting the basketball like a football
Across the court, yeah. I saw that. I didn't get the chance to put it in there. I thought there were some other ones that were...
Ron Artest, what is it? Meta World Peace, sorry.
Yeah.
I correct myself with that, but that guy. All right, well, one last thing. So I mentioned this last week, and we still have 2 spots open. So we are starting a Birdland BS Fantasy Football League. The league, again, is going to give you guys a chance to play against us and play against some of our biggest fans and some of our biggest supporters. And it gives you kind of a chance to interact with us as well, because we'll be talking about it on our social media accounts and doing all kinds of things to promote it. For those that are on YouTube right now, obviously you can see the championship belt here that is up for grabs for the winner.
If you're not on YouTube, go check it out on Twitter. I think you also...
I posted it on Twitter, and I will make sure I post something on Facebook. I know I did it earlier in the video, but I'll make sure I post a video. It's a really, really sweet belt. Folks over at Undisputed Belts, if you're looking for a cool way of showing off your fantasy football league, they do a really good job with these wrestling championship looking belts, Undisputed Belts. Check
This
them
thing
out
looks pretty
online.
sick.
It is pretty cool. Well, that's it, man. Another episode in the books. It was episode 54.
Getting up there.
I made it through it without crying. There wasn't any breaking news on Machado quite yet. I might not be crying in baseball, but I will be sad
To see Manny go.
To see Manny go, to see Adam go.
I think you're going to see it before the end of the night.
Yeah, it'd be the end of the night. Maybe tomorrow morning, first thing. We'll see.
Yeah.
Be sure to check us out on the web at birdlandbs.com. Check us out on all of our social network sites, Twitter, at BirdlandBS, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can find this audio podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and the TuneIn app, and Stitcher now. So be sure to look us up and subscribe on whichever podcast app you guys use. Thanks for tuning in, as always. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for commenting on our posts. For Birdland BS, I'm Fred.
I'm Scott.
We'll see you guys.
See ya!
not sure what happened there.
Yeah,
but-
neither do I.
All right, well, appreciate all you guys tuning in. James, I see it. Yeah, sad day as an Orioles fan is right. Like I said, I mean, it's absolutely the right move. I'm kind of excited to see what prospects we actually get. I'm hoping when the announcement comes that I'm not disappointed. That they actually get some value for Manny, but I hope it doesn't stop there.
Manny's done, by the way. They just they just said that he's not on deck.
Okay. Well, that's typical. I mean, that's
Lindor, yeah, this
you
far into the game.
got to get their substitutions and everything in. But yeah, it's a sad day to be an Orioles fan. But at the end, we know we're not going to keep him. We know we're not going to re-sign him. We got to start looking towards the future, and he's the first chip of hopefully many to fall. Manny is the first of many to fall.
See what you did there.
Wordplay.
He's the first Manny.
Yeah, I hope we can get some stuff for Britton. I hope we can get some guys for Jones. I hope we can get some guys for Brock, Givens. At this point, like I said, whoever
You can
comes
get,
calling.
yeah. I mean, you gotta get something for some of these guys. I haven't heard any more about Britton and Brock. It's
Yeah. Well, I think next
taking
thing
president.
I think after Manny it'll be Adam, and then after Adam goes, you and I talked about it last week. I think that's when we'll finally get to see Cedric Mullins get the call up, and hopefully in some of these deals with Manny and Adam, maybe we'll see some of these prospects play right away.
maybe
Some of the guys that I mentioned in the Dodgers deal, really actually all three of them projected to be at the major league level by the end of 2019. And that was in the Dodgers system. Put them in the Orioles system.
next week.
Yeah. And we might see them ASAP. And why not? Let them come up. Let them get their bumps and bruises and let them learn at this level.
All right, James just said if we get a chance, look at the chain he has on. You got
I
it.
saw it. I saw it. It's I'm not. Yeah, it's like 4 times the thickness.
Oh, is it like rope chain thing?
No, it's not rope. It's like this, but it's like 4 times the thickness of it, and it's completely blinged out. He was wearing it. He was wearing it last night, like during the All-Star.
Okay, I think I did see it then.
Yeah, he was wearing that, and I think he actually was wearing it today when he came in
On
with
the red.
his no undershirt, no chest hair suit thing that he had on.
I saw somebody today and they asked, was Manny wearing his sister's suit?
Well, it looked like he was ready for the flood too, man. Those pants came up above the ankles and saw a whole lot of ankle going on there. I don't know. I am by no means a fashion guy. So I'm not
We
gonna-
aren't hip to fashion.
No, I am not going to criticize somebody for their fashion. I can just poke fun where I can. But yeah, I did see that. I did see that change, James, and it's. I'd love to know what he paid for that thing. It's got to be a pretty penny.
It's probably more than my house is worth.
Yeah. Hopefully he doesn't piss off Aqib Talib or anything like that. And he comes ripping it off of him. Especially if they're going to be out in L.A. together.
Right, exactly. No bar fights.
No bar fights. All right, man. Well, we're going to sign off. Appreciate it as always, James. We will see you next week.
Adios.